Hello everyone, welcome to our first video here for our company. I'm a local real estate agent. My name is Fernando Jose. I do real estate here in the Dallas area. And
My name is Sergio Rodriguez. I'm a real estate broker here as well. The company is Pure Real Estate, and we're here to serve you.
okay, today we're going to be talking about the immigration policies, updates, and the general market for the immigrant here in Dallas because of a lot of recent changes, the election, some policy changes that we're seeing. And the purpose of this video is to cover that topic in general. Some of the topics and main areas that we'll cover are things like the market update, prices, inventory, things like that, where we're currently at. Also, the options for lending for an immigrant because of some recent changes, as well as the impact of the election and a few other fun topics that will be very helpful to you if you're an immigrant or if you know anybody that is an immigrant.
What's been happening here is that, according to some statistics that we have, is since November since November of last year, houses have been steadily increasing. More houses are for sale in the market. The average sales price is $399, just around a little under $400. And different areas fluctuate. Sometimes you have some markets that are a little more specific, that have higher home prices, and then some of them have lower home prices as well. And then also certain areas of the market have more houses for sale, which generally create more competition, which kind of sometimes creates a little bit of a price reductions. And then in other areas, you got houses that are not that many houses for sale, which is a high in demand, and those stay pretty firm and flat. In some cases, they can even go higher as well too.
So what we're seeing is that the average home price has gone up compared to last year. Now, what we're also seeing is that the inventory is also higher. So why is it that the inventory is increasing so much as to last year? You would think that since all the people are moving into Dallas, you automatically assume that there will be more competition and more demand for these homes. So what is it that is leaving this surplus of inventory?
There's a combination of things, but probably the most significant one of them is there's already a lot of new construction that's still being built, and a lot of new apartments that are being built, and so that's softening the demand. And the interest rates have been up for a while, so that's also caused a lot of people to rent instead of buy. And so the inventory has been steadily, growing for those reasons.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned the interest rates. So let's talk about that for a second. Everybody, when they talk to a real estate agent or anybody that does real estate, one of the main questions they ask is, how are the interest rates? How's interest rates looking? Well, as of early 2025, mortgage rates were fluctuating a bit, probably most likely because of the new election, new changes that are happening. Yeah, but they recently lowered to 6.67%. Again, this number consistently changes because that's how interest rates work, but they are estimated to be around 6.67%. And these things, the interest rates, is also one of the reasons why the inventory is so high, because of the change. People are waiting to see when it'll lower or when it'll steady, so that they can be more comfortable in making such a big purchase. Right now, do you want to talk about the buying versus renting?
Yeah, I do, but I also want to just add to what you were just saying right now. The interest rates are pretty competitive just about all over the area by lenders. However, one of the things that's happening is that builders with their new communities and their in-house lenders are offering some good interest rates, much lower.
Right.
I think we see them at 5.9 or even
Yeah.
4.9. Some of these are introductory interest rates, meaning that they might be going up in the next year, or next 2 years, or 3 years, but they help the borrower get into a house now, get settled in, get at a monthly payment where they can feel good about, and then afterwards just continue to keep going up to a point where they still feel comfortable doing it. Obviously, they want to check their finances to make sure they're still good when the interest rate is going to be at the prime, at the top that it's going to be at. So we've been able to help some buyers get into some houses with some good affordable interest rates. Not only that, but some of these new construction builders are also offering a lot of incentives, either for upgrades or towards down payments.
Yeah, my clients actually, they were able to get $10,000 towards their closing costs, and they were able to get some appliances and things like that. They get a lot of buyer credits, right?
Right.
So, but again, by builders, we mean like the new constructions. For example, when you see the new neighborhoods being developed by, for example, Bloomington, which my clients use, or Landsea Homes, things like that. Those are the builders that are usually offering those incentives towards buyers.
Right. Now, going back to the buying versus renting in Dallas, I'm just going to have to say flat out, it's always going to be better to buy. However, it is more expensive to buy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, buying a home comes with more responsibilities.
Yeah.
Not only do you have to, maybe the mortgage payment might be higher than a rent payment would be, but at the same time, you become more you have to be more responsible with maintenance and, to keep the house, right? Should something go wrong or need fixing, or even if, you want to improve it to your liking, it costs more, I think, and that's part of, owning it, right? And that's the benefit of it. But I always think, we're here in the greatest country in the world, and part of the American dream is owning your own land, owning your own property, owning your own roof over your head. So, buying is always going to be, in the long run, in the long term, the best investment. Our country allows us to deduct our taxes, the interest that we pay. So and then not only that, but over the years, real estate generally always goes up.
Yeah.
And I say generally because there was a small time in my career where it didn't. And so, God forbid that it was to happen again.
When was that?
That was during the mortgage crash. 2008, 2009, and 2010.
How long have you been doing real estate?
25 years. Yeah.
That's older than me.
There you
Whoa.
go. Yeah.
That's wild.
But generally it goes up. However, if you keep real estate long enough, it'll fix itself. It'll correct itself. So the prices, have always kind of gone up. And so that's like a savings account. So even though it's costing you more money to buy a house than it is to rent, keeping it over the long run, it's like building a savings account. Why? Because you're paying down your principal. And then two, as appreciation happens, you start building that spread, that difference between what you owe and the new value of the property. Say you bought it for $300, now it's worth, 5 years later it's worth $350. You have $50,000 in equity. So that's a savings account. That's what I would call your savings account. So renting is always going to be an immediate, short-term benefit. If you don't know the area, you're kind of just still scouting it out or still kind of not sure where you want to, put some roots down, renting might be a good option. But if you already know where you want to live at and that you're going to be living here, go ahead and rent it. Go ahead and buy it.
Now for our next section, we're going to be talking about our financing for immigrant, right? So anybody that is non-resident specifically, we're going to be talking about what options they have and the recent updates to the FHA loans. So let's talk about ITIN loans in the first place. So we're in Dallas. Dallas is a city where there is a lot of immigration. We have a lot of non-residents, that are living in the area, family members, friends, coworkers, all these things. We have a lot of immigrants here. Okay. So as far as finding lending for a home to make your purchase in real estate, it's not difficult. There are many options. There are many lenders that are willing to lend money to anybody that has that ITIN.
So, Fernando, can you tell us a little bit about what the I-10 loans are out there, what it's available to them?
Yes, so there are, like I said, there are many lenders that are willing to do it. Now, what you have to understand about the ITIN loans is that because they run more risk, the lenders of lending to somebody that is a non-resident, that means the requirements to get in are a little bit higher than somebody that obviously is a resident. So typically, what an immigrant will have to do is have to get a conventional loan. Now, a conventional loan is going to ask of you about 15 to 25% as a down payment. So they're going to have more requisites to get that lending because, again, it runs more risk to the lender. And this also is going to mean higher interest rates. So there's many lending options available, but the requirements in order to get accepted by the lender are going to be a little bit higher. Do you want
Right.
to add anything?
No, I think you covered it all. I-10 loans, in short, are going to require the borrower to put a little bit more money down, 15 to 20%, probably a little more, depending on the lender. And also the interest rates are going to be a little higher.
So, what range interest rates can somebody be expecting?
Typically for I-10 loans, I've seen them to be somewhere as little as, 8.5, 9. So it's more of a specialty type of a loan for a special type of borrower, meaning those that don't have, they're not citizens or they're not residents, and so they come with a higher price with them. But on the flip side, they'll allow the borrower to become a homeowner,
Right.
and again, it goes back to buying versus renting. And I just ran into a situation here recently where a past client of mine, a past client of mine's daughter bought a house for her and her parents to live. And now she wants to pass that house to the parents. The parents couldn't buy it because they didn't have a Social Security at that time. But now he does have a Social Security. He just got it recently. He was an I-10 borrower or I-10 person reporting taxes and having an I-10. So now he may be able to, buy the house from his daughter.
Right.
So going back to different ways, different strategies, we encourage anybody who's considering or thinking about buying a house with any of their questions, concerns, to give us a call, and that way we can kind of understand their whole scenario, understand the whole picture of what's going on, and be able to see if there's some sort of solution for them.
Right, because not every situation is going to be the same, and lending is not always going to be the exact same.
Right.
So it's good to go to a professional to help you strategize as best as they can, to find what options you have available to you and which one is the best for your specific situation. Right.
That's correct.
So now there's a big update to lending for ITIN that we've been seeing going around in the media and got a lot of mixed opinions on. But the FHA loan. So there's been an update to the FHA loan. In case you don't know what that is, it's a type of lending that is easier to qualify for. They have less requisites than a conventional loan, and it's for first-time homeowners. So what it is, it's a loan where you can, depending on your credit score, of course, but they have less requirements of your credit score. They have less requirements,
Down payment.
Down payment. You can even get a down payment as low as 3.5%. And it's a way that the government kind of helps you to, like you said, live that American dream. They help you get into that home. Now, as of recently, there's been an update to the FHA loans where before somebody that had that ITIN could get that type of lending so that they can qualify easier and things like that. But now, as of a few days ago, real recent, that has changed. So now you have to be a resident of the United States of America to qualify for that.
That's correct. We just got off the phone not too long ago with one of our preferred lenders.
Yeah.
And he made us aware that I think starting May the 25th, after May the 25th, if you were not a U.S. citizen or a resident, you weren't going to be able to get a FHA loan. So it appears to us that anybody with a work permit, which included the DACA and the TPS, I think he said, type of work permits were not going to be approved or allowed for lending under the FHA new guideline. At this moment, that's what we know. So,
like he said, it could change. They could sue. A lot of people don't like it, of course. So we'll see what happens. But as of right now, yeah.
As of right now, if you're going to be a buyer, which we encourage you to be a homeowner, there's always a way. As the old saying goes, where there's a will, there's a way. So there are private, sellers that will owner finance properties. There are perhaps a conventional loan,
which will probably be the main thing people are going to be doing.
The only thing that could probably, put a little bit more of a, I guess what you call a little more, a challenge on, for some who's got a work permit, if they can still buy a house, in my opinion.
Yeah, of course.
They're just going to probably have to come up with more savings, more money as a more down payment. But there's lenders out there who could probably still help them and just give us a call. We'll be more than happy to connect you with some of our lenders to see what alternatives we got. Because we want everybody to be a homeowner. So I really believe, home ownership creates better streets and better neighborhoods and just better values for everybody. We become committed to our street, to our neighborhood, to our neighbors as a homeowner. And the more committed you are, the more skin you have in the game, the more likely chances that you're going to want a better outcome, right? And that's a good outcome for both you, your personal family, your neighbors, and in turn, if everybody does that, the whole
community,
city, the whole community is better. So don't be discouraged. Just keep working along. Give us a call, and we'll see how we can help you with this.
Now, for this section, we're going to be talking about the impact of the election. So we're going to be talking about what people are feeling, what potential outcomes that could happen, and also what solutions, what things we can be doing as if you're an immigrant, right? If you're a non-resident, that you can be doing to position yourself better in the current stage that we're in.
Okay. So, one of the things that that media is really good about is, talking about all the negative stuff. And, sometimes unconsciously, that creates, fear in us. So I've been asked, when is the best time to buy a house? And the question, I kind of chuckle at that, because if you've ever heard the story of or the phrase of when is the best time to plant a tree, it's very similar. They tell you that 20 years ago was the best time to have bought a house. Because 20 years later, you have a nice, full-grown, mature tree. Well, the best time I bought a house was 20 years ago. The second best time to buy a house is today. As
soon as possible.
As soon as possible. So what stops us from buying a house sometimes? It's fear. It's a commitment. I get it, but it can be managed. What do I mean by that? Well, just make sure if you're renting, if you have been renting, you have a history of being able to make your monthly rent payments.
Correct.
That should give you some confidence that, hey, this is kind of the monthly payment that I feel comfortable doing, And sometimes people need to buy a house with multiple borrowers. Maybe their spouse also contributes, if they're newlywed. Maybe their parents. Maybe they both move into a house and they both, start this journey of home ownership, And as you buy the house, sometimes you want to look for ways to increase your income, right? So if you increase your income, then that gives you the confidence that you alone can make the payments, or you can add extra towards the principal to pay it off a lot faster and sooner. So I've been asked, I've been told, I've heard, well, I don't want to buy right now because I don't know what's going on with the current, market or the
Election,
current
interest.
election,
Yeah.
the administration. And so, what I interpret that to be is I'm afraid right now. I'm uncertain about my future. I'm uncertain about where I'm going to live at. So therefore, I'm just not going to do anything. And really, what's happening is we stop pursuing something that's worthy to have to obtain a worthy goal, which we're talking about here, home ownership. So I'm going to suggest to you guys, you know, let's rethink about this. Let's think about what's the long term. Why would it be good? Here's a key question to answer. Why would it be good that I buy a house? What's good about it? So the answers to that question should motivate you, inspire you to take a little action to say, okay, what's one of the first steps that I should be doing if I know that it's good for me to buy a house? And so one of them is talk to a professional. You're going to need, if you don't have all the money, you're going to need a loan. So a lender, a real estate agent. And so we're here to help you with that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you made that point because there is a lot of uncertainty, and we talked about this earlier on in the video where we see a lot of inventory in a time where we see a lot of people moving to Dallas, and Dallas is a booming city right now, right? So why is it that the inventory is going up? And part of the reason that's happening is because of the fear to buy a home. We have people that are able to buy a home, but they're stopped because of the fear. Now, obviously, you don't want to make rash decisions. You want to be as educated and informed as you can when making such a big purchase, possibly one of your biggest purchases, if not the biggest purchase of your life. So it is important to be educated. Now, the thing with real estate is that, again, something that you mentioned is that real estate almost always, always, always is going to appreciate. If you would have bought a house, for example, I was looking at a neighborhood 75137. That's a zip code here in Duncanville. I was looking at that a few months ago, and I realized that in 2 years, the prices went up. The value of the houses, they went up by 33%, around 33%. That's a third of the value in 2 years, right? So imagine if somebody would have bought that 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
How much is that worth, right? It appreciates. And the sooner you can get into an asset that appreciates, the better it is. Because if you sit on money, if you sit on capital, and you leave it in your savings account, realistically,
It's
inflation, it
devalues.
It depreciates. Yeah.
Inflation is said to be about 3% per year. So if you had $100,000, it's take 3% off of that. If you had $100,000, it's 97.
In 5 years, that's 15.
Right. So investing in real estate, buying real estate is, everybody should become a homeowner. Everybody should own more than one property if they can. And so we highly think that, yes, fear stops us, but it also motivates us. So there's fear out there of being homeless, So what do I mean about that is that as a renter, what happens to rents? They usually go up
every year. Mm-hmm.
They usually go up. So there's uncertainty there too. There's also uncertainty that the landlord may sell property or may ask you to move. Or you may become, if you're in an apartment or something like that, I've heard a lot of horror stories about, break-ins into automobiles, bad neighbors as well like that too. So you have less control of things. So those are certain things that are also cause people to be afraid. So use fear, but in a good way. What do I mean by that is, if you think you're going to live for the next 10 or 20 years, and you should think, how much better off would you be have bought a house here this year versus, 5 years, later or 10 years later. So sometimes we have to just, make a decision for the long run.
Now, since we're on the subject of fear, what are some things that non-residents should be cautious of or be more aware of during the election that can affect their properties if they're an owner,
A non-resident.
non-resident?
So I was interviewed by a TV station not too long ago,
Really?
and I answered those questions. So several things that they should probably do is one, they should have somebody in their household, preferably a friend, a family member or a good friend, where they can give them authorization to be able to speak to their mortgage company should something happen that they have to leave the country. So somebody here locally can talk to their mortgage company. Second of all is obviously they should have one or two immigration attorneys to be able to know how to who they can call if this was to happen. And then third, they should know of a real estate agent. What do I mean by that? Why a real estate agent? And I think if they know a real estate agent and they're pre-planned worst case scenario, there's a peace of mind that happens, that they know that how things are going to play out should something like this happen.
Right.
Well, why a real estate agent? Well, because a real estate agent can help them sell the property if we need to sell it. We can help them lease the property if they need to lease it until situations change for them. And so they don't lose everything. You know what I mean? By having somebody here take care of their possession, take care of their property here.
Correct. So a fear that I know a lot of immigrants have that own properties is if they kick me out the country, they're going to take away my property too. What happens to the property?
The property still stays in their name.
Correct.
That's not a property that gets taken away from them. In fact, that's a misconception. That's misinformation.
Misinformation.
So technically that house, if it's bought with either ITIN or if it's bought, in their name, whatever the case might have been, it's theirs. It belongs. This government will not take it away from you.
Right.
It's
your asset.
It's your asset. The good thing is, with proper documentation, you can let somebody else manage it and control it with certain power of attorneys
Right.
or certain power while you're not here. And that's the beautiful thing about it. It's not going to get lost.
Right. That I'm glad we answered that because that's one of the biggest fears I think people have with the election. Now we're going to hop into our last section and we're going to talk about considerations for current homeowners, again, non-resident, immigrant. What options are best right now in this current market with everything going on? If you're a buyer, if you're a seller, let's talk about that. Let's dive into it. So, Sergio, walk us through maybe why would it be a good time to sell? Who is it a good time to sell?
Well, selling is always a good reason to sell, in my opinion, when perhaps you're moving out of the city. Let's say you're moving into a different area. That's one good reason. Another good reason to sell would be, let's say you wanted to change locations within the city. I've sold my house for a better house, in my opinion, right? So some people I've helped them sell their home for a smaller house.
Yeah.
They're downsizing. Maybe the yard was too much for them to keep. And there are some houses that could become a little too much to maintain for certain people, right?
And then also, we were just looking at it. I believe the current homeowner, the average home buyer, the age is 38. So it could also mean a time where kids are maybe moving out.
Right.
That's another big thing as well.
Right. So let's just say that you're kind of the evolution of real estate would be one or two people get together, buy a house. They a 2-bedroom is sufficient for them. Perhaps they if they're a couple, they decide to have children. Perhaps now they need an extra bedroom or 2 bedrooms. Let's say I have two children or 3 children. So now they need a 3-bedroom, and instead of a 1 bath, they need a 2 bath. Perhaps they need a 2-car garage.
Right.
So there, and then I've had people sell because they bought a 2-story home, and going up the stairs became problematic for them.
Yeah.
So they just wanted a 1-story home. So there's different reasons why it's a good thing to sell. The important thing, it has to make sense financially and emotionally, for you as well too.
Emotionally, yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Because you want to eventually be happy with the move, with the transition.
Right. Now, as far as holding long term, why would it be? Well, we pretty much answered this already, but just to summarize it, why would it be good to hold property in this time?
Well, holding a property, you mean as you live in it or as a rental home? Or
You know what? Just ownership, whether it's an investment, as long as it's under your name.
Right. So the longer you hold a property, and it's whether you're living in it or it's in an investment rental house, the longer you hold on to it, the less you're needing to you touch your equity. I call your equity as your locked savings account. It's you have savings, you have money, you have value in that house, and you technically can't get it out right away as if you go to the bank and with an ATM card and pull it out, right? So it's there, so it's yours and it's theirs. It's there in the account. So it's good. The longer you don't have to touch it, and you're living in it, I think the better off you are, because that's one big payment, which is your roof over your head, that you don't have to make, or that keeps building over time. So that's one of the main reasons why you don't want to sell, or you want to hold on to it.
Okay. Okay. And I think with that, we've pretty much covered what we were going to talk about today. So just to conclude, guys, if you have a family member, a friend, a coworker, whatever it is, if you have a relationship with someone who's a non-resident and there's a lot of fear going around, at the end of the day, if you own an asset, it's under your name. Okay, they're not going to take that away from you. If you're worried about buying, don't worry. There's policy changes, yes. They're making it a little bit more difficult to maybe get that lending, but there's still a ton of options available for you. And if you're looking to sell, there's many good reasons to sell. We're here to help you if you have any questions, any needs, but there's no reason to feel fear.
Right. So thanks, Fernando, for this opportunity to discuss about these important topics that are going on right now in the market. If you have a specific scenario, situation you're going through, specific questions, you can call us and we'll have a free consultation with you. Generally, it's about 30 minutes, 45 minutes. We can do these in person, or we can do these through a video call. And your friends, your family members, and we can discuss some of these situations with them, and just come up with what might be a good opportunity, a good situation for you, hopefully.
Right. All right, guys. See you around. God bless you. Bye-bye.